Hello everyone, welcome to DKRetro's video game review. The game we're going to be reviewing tonight is an arcade classic known as Punchout. For those of you who had a Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, it pretty much branched out to there, but this is the first and very first, version of Punchout, and it was a Nintendo product from the start. And it really was, you were just this guy who just went pretty much boxing. It was like, you never really saw the guy's face until he won the title. It was almost like a clear hex. But first guy he had to fight was, of course, Glass Joe. There were 6 guys he had to fight, and Glass Joe is obviously just that. Very easy guy to get through Joe. You played Glass Joe, we made jokes about the Glass Joe, because you could take him down literally in 30 seconds.
Absolutely. The great thing about the game was, first of all, it was created in 1984 by the Nintendo company. This would hit the arcades, and this pretty much gave us the room for what was to follow. The Nintendo version, the Super Nintendo version, and so forth. I haven't seen it gone beyond the Super Nintendo. I don't think it's actually... We've seen other boxing games, but we haven't really seen a Punch-Out series. Glass Joe, the first guy you hit... Oh, should I say the first guy you battled was your basic tutorial. You fought him. He was very easy. He lets you get a couple of blows. But don't underestimate the guy, because in the arcade it's totally different. He will fight back, and he will knock you down.
And then let's move on to the next character, which was Piston Hurricane. Piston Hurricane, again, got a little bit harder. Because what they usually do is, you can do the face punches or the body blows. And you could duck, and what would happen is halfway through, he would kind of bounce back, and that's when you know he was going to do what we would call a special move. And what that meant is he's just going to keep on punching you, no matter what, and at one point, random point, he's going to do an uppercut. So, and if you didn't hit him at the right spot as he was coming in, you could knock him right down in one punch.
Oh, absolutely. The funny thing about that character, too, was he was very hard. His character basically gave you it was just one of those things that it was all about timing, Rick. You had to know when his punches are going to come, and that was your true test in Punch-Out. I remember when I first played this back in the arcade, I remember literally going for it, trying to learn the game, and spending a lot of quarters, because Piston Hurricane was your real, how should I say, your real exploration into this game, and he was a tough character.
I agree with that, and I think one thing we didn't mention is when you get enough punches in, you get what's called like the Super Puncher, which is an uppercut or a right hook. And I remember that, for me, Piston Joe, once I figured out the mechanics of the character, he was easier to knock down, but for me, the real test was Bald Bull. Now, Bald Bull, again, you couldn't really do a lot of uppercuts. You couldn't really just do straight punches. You would have to, duck and hit him 1, 2, 3 times, and then he'd be like, okay, I'm ready to fight again. And then he would do what I call the bull punch. He would get all the way back up and bounce 1, 2, 3. If he hits you, you're down. That's it. You either duck it, or you have to be smart enough and do what I did, a body blow, and they'd knock him down. But again, he was one of those tough characters that you would have to be smart about it and move down, and there were so many times that, keep in mind, this game was 50 cents, and back in the day, that's double to most games. Most games were quarters. So I would spend dollars and dollars and dollars, literally one day on this game, until I figured out, okay, this is how the mechanics to him.
Oh, absolutely. Again, and some of these arcade machines, the classics, were really big, and they encompass you. So you got to think of it like this: you're standing at this machine, pumping quarters and tapping buttons. It's really, really a really challenging game. When you get past Piston Hurricane, you go to Bald Bull. Game gets really, really hard. Now, unlike the Super Nintendo version, this does not include Mike Tyson. This is just a random bunch of generated, pretty much fighters. Your character, again, like Rick said, it's a hexagon. It's kind of just the lines drawn, and you're fighting out. Rick, graphics at the time, even for a game like this, was really incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, because the games were still very much 8-bit. They were just, a lot of pixels. I maybe you want to say 16-bit, but this looked like it was going to be the next generation. But before that, which is a totally different game, I still have to say, in its time, the best game was Dragon's Lair, which was full cartoon. Obviously, it was clips, but still, it was a sign of things to come in the future. But moving on back to Punch-Out, after that guy would become Kid Quick. And if you played him right, you could knock him right down. But he would have these moves that if you ducked, he'll just, do a quick low blow, and it would really knock you out. Or not knock you out, but it would take down half of your life points. And if you had any way moving up to getting your super punch, it would knock it right down. But for me, he was pretty easy to get past. I don't know how he was for you.
It was the same way. It was all about timing. And if you can catch him right, and if you can really jump right into the fight, it will give you a chance to beat him. It all goes on timing. You had to be ready to fight. And again, timing. All about timing. Rick, unlike other arcade games at the time, Punch-Out actually was very good in sound. The voiceovers were still a little, 80s, 80s sound bites, but it was a lot better than most of the other games that were out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in most of the games, with the exception of maybe a rare few, they did any kind of talking. I think as we knew that when the wrestling games came out, such as WWF Superstars, and then they had WrestleFest, and that's when they were really having talking, but it's like the same very basic, like audio. But moving back, pretty much, as we said before a couple times, Punch-Out is all about timing. Once you get the all the moves down right and how they, what the next punches are going to be, you can pretty much knock them down. I'm going to jump over. Pizza Pasta reminded me as just another version of Piston Hurricane. But then came the World Champion, and he's called himself Mr. Sandman, and what he does is like a tornado punch. Sometimes he'll do 2, sometimes he'll do 3. And that's a super punch. And if you get hit with it, bang, you're down. And even getting some of the big right hooks and uppercuts with your power moves is sometimes hard to execute.
Oh, absolutely. And the way the computer was set, or should I say the characters were set, it was really difficult to get everything in perspective. You really had to really be quick on the computer to, or should I say, really fast on your characters to knock these guys out. And I never got it that far in the Mike Tyson's, Nintendo I did, but it basically it's all about pushing the buttons as fast as possible. And there was a combination. One thing I did like about these guys is they did have a way. You kind of get an idea of the pattern that they had.
Yeah, and eventually you win the title if you can get past Mr. Sandman, and you go from like a green pixel to like a yellow thing, and but anyways, the problem is that the same characters, even Glass Joe became twice as harder, and their patterns changed. Their punch, they could do the same punch they did at the first round, but it would do twice the damage, so they'd be twice as fast. I think one time I actually was lucky to beat Mr. Sandman the second time around, and then on the third round, or the third time around, the third cycle, should I say, I couldn't get past Glass Joe.
Oh yeah, and it was a funny thing because if somebody first time saw you in an arcade playing this game, yes, fans, we actually went to the arcade to play these games, and if you actually saw it and somebody saw you having Glass Joe beat you, it was kind of a funny thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was one of my favorite games at the time. They had other games like Yi Kung Fu. They had Karate Champ, which was one of the few one-on-one games. They had wrestling games such as Bat Mania, and so many others. But those were just the rare few that I actually played. But again, this was one of my all-time favorites.
Absolutely. And it was the same thing with me. It was well done for the first ever boxing game, and it was something that, even though we've seen some of it in the Atari games, this game really, really was the pinnacle that started the Punch-Out series. And again, I'm glad that you selected this game, and it's just a fun time. I had my fun time with it.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I think we're going to wrap up this edition of DKRetro. Joe, you are the host. Where can people find the chat room?
Well, they can find us on Facebook at facebook.com. Groups, DKRetro. You can also follow me, Joseph Knight, on facebook.com as well, at facebook.com, Joseph Knight Manager. You can also follow me on Twitter at JKnightCWA. We also tackle wrestling. Rick, if you want to tell the fans where they can follow us with any wrestling news.
Well, if you want to hang over and shoot the shit with us, we're pretty much a free-for-all chat room. We have very few rules. And that's over in the group section on Facebook, HWR Chat Room. For those of you who don't know what HWR is, we are Hardcore Wrestling Radio. Joe is a co-host on that show. Coming up on the 14th of April, we will have the honor to be able to speak with WWE's Rhino. So I can't wait for that one, Joe.
Oh, absolutely. I followed Rhino's career since he started in ECW, and it's such a privilege to have that guy come in, take his time out to talk to us.
And, our next game that we're going to be doing, we're going to continue with the Punch-Out series. It was another coin-op game, and the game was Super Punch-Out.
For the host here, Joseph Knight, for DKRetro, and for definitely my sidekick, my lunatic partner, who we're probably going to curse out and beat up old Bull after this, Rickhead.